Good evening. To begin our service, Lil, could you announce the first hymn, please?
Hymn number 99. He that hath God his guardian made shall underneath the Almighty's shade fearless and undisturbed abide. Thus to myself of him I'll say, he is my fortress, shield, and stay. My God, in him I will confide. Hymn number 99.
If you'd like to read along while the readings are being given, you can go to our website, plainfieldcs.com. And on the cover page under Services, you'll find a tab for the Wednesday meeting, and there you'll find the readings for tonight. And the theme for the readings tonight is handling the claims of witchcraft. The Bible. Deuteronomy. When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out before thee. Acts. And a vision appeared to Paul in the night. There stood a man of Macedonia and prayed him, saying, Come over into Macedonia and help us. And after he had seen the vision, immediately we endeavored to go into Macedonia, assuredly gathering that the Lord had called us for to preach the gospel unto them. And it came to pass, as we went to prayer, a certain damsel possessed with a spirit of divination met us, which brought her masters much gain by soothsaying. The same followed Paul and us, and cried, saying, These men are the servants of the Most High God, which show unto us the way of salvation. And this did she many days. But Paul, being grieved, turned and said to the Spirit, I command thee in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her. And he came out the same hour. And when her masters saw that the hope of their gains was gone, they caught Paul and Silas, and drew them into the marketplace unto the rulers, and brought them to the magistrates, saying, These men, being Jews, do exceedingly trouble our city, and teach customs which are not lawful for us to receive, neither to observe, being Romans. And the multitude rose up together against them, and the magistrates rent off their clothes, and commanded to beat them. And when they had laid many stripes upon them, they cast them into prison, charging the jailer to keep them safely. Who, having received such a charge, thrust them into the inner prison, and made their feet fast in the stocks. And at midnight, Paul and Silas prayed, and sang praises unto God, and the prisoners heard them. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's bands were loosed. And the keeper of the prison, awaking out of his sleep, and seeing the prison doors open, he drew out his sword, and would have killed himself, supposing that the prisoners had been fled. But Paul cried with a loud voice, saying, Do thyself no harm, for we are all here. Then he called for a light, and sprang in, and came trembling, and fell down before Paul and Silas, and brought them out, and said, Sirs, what must I do to be saved? And they said, Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and thou shalt be saved, and thy house. And they spake unto him the word of the Lord, and to all that were in his house. And he took them the same hour of the night, and washed their stripes, and was baptized, he and all his, straightway. And when he had brought them into his house, he set meat before them, and rejoiced, believing in God with all his house. And the sergeants told these words unto the magistrates, and they feared. And they came and besought them, and brought them out, and desired them to depart out of the city. I will now read correlative passages from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, and from Prose Works by Mary Baker Eddy. Necromancy has no foundation, in fact, no intelligence, and the belief that it has deceives itself. Whatever simulates power and truth in matter does this as a lie declaring itself. That mortals' faith in matter may have the effect of power. But when the whole fabrication is found to be a lie, away goes all its supposed power and prestige. As named in Christian Science, animal magnetism or hypnotism is the specific term for error or mortal mind. It is the false belief that mind is in matter and is both evil and good, that evil is as real as good and more powerful. This belief has not one quality of truth. It is either ignorant or malicious. The malicious form of hypnotism ultimates in moral idiocy. The truths of immortal mind sustain man, and they annihilate the fables of mortal mind, whose flimsy and gaudy pretensions, like silly moths, singe their own wings and fall into dust. The mild forms of animal magnetism are disappearing, and its aggressive features are coming to the front. The looms of crime, hidden in the dark recesses of mortal thought, are every hour weaving webs more complicated and subtle. So secret are the present methods of animal magnetism that they ensnare the age into indolence and produce the very apathy on the subject which the criminal desires. Christian Science goes to the bottom of mental action and reveals the theodicy, which indicates the rightness of all divine action as the emanation of divine mind, and the consequent wrongness of the opposite so-called action, evil, occultism, necromancy, mesmerism, animal magnetism, hypnotism. Whoever uses his developed mental powers like an escaped felon to commit fresh atrocities as opportunity occurs is never safe. God will arrest him. Divine justice will manacle him. His sins will be millstones about his neck, weighing him down to the depths of ignominy and death. The aggravation of error foretells its doom and confirms the ancient axiom, whom the gods would destroy, they first make mad. In this state of misled consciousness, one is ready to listen complacently to audible falsehoods that once he would have resisted and loathed. And this, because the false seems true. The malicious mental argument and its action on the mind of the perpetrator is fatal, morally and physically. The whole world needs to know that the milder forms of animal magnetism and hypnotism are yielding to its aggressive features. We have no moral right and no authority in Christian Science for influencing the thoughts of others, except it be to serve God and benefit mankind. Man is properly self-governed, and he should be guided by no other mind than truth, the divine mind. Christian Science gives neither moral right nor might to harm either man or beast. The Christian Scientist is alone with his own being and with the reality of things. The mental malpractitioner is not, cannot be, a Christian Scientist. He is disloyal to God and man. He has every opportunity to mislead the human mind, and he uses it. People may listen complacently to the suggestion of the inaudible falsehood, not knowing what is hurting them, or that they are hurt. This mental bane could not bewilder, darken, or misguide consciousness, physically, moral, or spiritually, if the individual knew what was at work and his power over it. This unseen evil is the sin of sins. It is never forgiven. Even the agony and death that it must sooner or later cause the perpetrator cannot blot out its effects on himself till he suffers up to its extinction and stops practicing it. The crimes committed under this new old regime of necromancy or diabolism are not easily reckoned. At present, its mystery protects it, but its hidden modus and flagrance will finally be known, and the laws of our land will handle its thefts, adulteries, and murders, and will pass sentence on the darkest and deepest of human crimes. Mortal error will vanish in a moral chemicalization. This mental fermentation has begun and will continue until all errors of belief yield to understanding. Belief is changeable, but spiritual understanding is changeless. As this consummation draws nearer, he who has shaped his course in accordance with divine science will endure to the end. As material knowledge diminishes and spiritual understanding increases, real objects will be apprehended mentally instead of materially. During this final conflict, wicked minds will endeavor to find means by which to accomplish more evil. But those who discern Christian Science will hold crime in check. They will aid in the ejection of error. They will maintain law and order and cheerfully await the certainty of ultimate perfection. May divine love so permeate the affections of all those who have named the name of Christ in its fullest sense, that no counteracting influence can hinder their growth or taint their examples. We will now have a moment of silent prayer and follow with the repetition of the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Okay. Jeff, can you announce the next hymn, please?
Hymn number 267. Our God is all in all. His children cannot fear. See baseless evil fail, and know that God is here. Hymn number 267.
Children cannot fear.
Welcome to the Wednesday testimony meeting for the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent on October 31, 2018. We are a worldwide congregation. Many of you have found us through our website or our YouTube channel, and we're very grateful for all of you who have found this church. We conduct Sunday services every Sunday morning, and we begin at 10 o'clock with a roundtable discussion, which is a training session in Christian Science. That's followed at 11 by our service. And we also have a Sunday school for children at 11, and that class is conducted via its own teleconference number so that any child anywhere in the world can attend our Sunday school. And of course, we have testimony meetings every Wednesday at 8:15, as we are now. And you can listen to our services either on our website, plainfieldcs.com, on our YouTube channel, or via a teleconference number that we provide for that purpose. We have been publishing lately, and we have a new issue of Forum Highlights, which has been published as in the mail to subscribers, and it can also be found on our website. Also, we are going to have another Bible study class next Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. So check the website for Bible study questions, and please join us next Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And one more item, there is an article, actually excerpts from a book by Helen Wright, featured on our website, entitled Unspeakable Pity and Prayer, Mrs. Eddy's Deep Desire to Help and Heal Humanity. It's a very short, lovely article, excerpts by Helen Wright. And we will now have time for testimonies of healings through Christian Science. Those of you who are calling in to testify, when you're ready to testify, press star twice on your telephone, and that will let us know that you're ready. But before you do so, please make sure you are in a quiet place, because once you do that, we will be able to hear everything that your telephone picks up. And then I will call on you one at a time by name. And I would just ask that each of you limit your comments to 4 minutes, please, so that everybody has an opportunity to speak. The meeting is now open for testimonies of healings through Christian Science. Janet from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for an experience my husband and I had yesterday. We were standing in line at a supermarket. The woman in front of us had 2 young boys with her. I assume she was their mother. The clerk was engaging the little boys and said, "Now you be good," as they were leaving. The older one said, "Oh, I will." He was about 4 years old, I'm assuming. As they headed for the door, he raised his little voice to the clerk and said, "I love you." The clerk was so surprised, and so were my husband and I, but it was so touching. My husband remarked how unsolicited and sweet this little boy was and how he was sure that it made the clerk's day. It filled my eyes with tears at this pure expression of love, and I was so grateful God had placed us there to hear his love. It was a wonderful experience, and what a perfect end to our day. I'd like to express my gratitude tonight for this church, which is so devoted to the pure teachings of our leader, Mary Baker Eddy. I'm grateful to Plainfield for bringing these teachings to the world, which is helping our fellow man through our independent and unity watches, our Bible studies, roundtables, church services, and Sunday school. I'm so grateful, too, for the devotion of our loving practitioners who work tirelessly to help us stay on the straight and narrow. Thank you so much, and I love you all.
Thank you.
We love you too. Candy, Wisconsin.
Candy from Wisconsin, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Gary, I would like to say thank you for that wonderful reading tonight. It was very special and very apropos. Earlier this year, I retired, and although I've been very happy with this decision, I have been feeling kind of isolated and missed the daily discourse that I had with people. In Bicknell Young's 1937 college, he says, man exists at the standpoint of opportunity, not once, twice, nor alone in human experience, but forever. And in his collective writings, he states, there is no pain, grief, loneliness, etc. This is malpractice. Every time these suggestions of isolation presented themselves, I knew my life was in God's hands. One morning, out of the blue, a friend called me and asked her to do something with her. A few days later, I was asked to rejoin a group I had resigned from many years before. Thank you, God. He does indeed supply our every need. Good night.
Thank you. Day from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Today's calendar quote reads, "You are as necessary to God as God is to you." To me, this is a healing thought to reflect on each day. Thanks to my study of Christian Science, I've learned that there is absolutely nothing that I can achieve, acquire, or accomplish without God. And to remember that He has a specific purpose for me to fulfill each day is motivation for me to be at my best in order to give my best to each assigned task or duty. I've been reminded in this church that I work for God. He is my true employer and the one whom I report to. And I'm grateful to be learning through various experiences that He always provides the time, opportunity, ideas, wisdom, strength, and intelligence for me to do what He requires, as I allow Him to speak to me and to guide me. Lately, I've been overcome with feeling stressed and burdened frequently. And I'm grateful for this uplifting truth to work with from now on to help to keep my thought clear and clean. Thank you so much for tonight's meeting, for the readings, the testimonies, and the music. I'm grateful for all of the faithful workers in this church, and I'm very, very grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you.
Jim, Arizona.
Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Good evening. Christian Science is a very present help at any time we need it. Last week, I was suffering from a cough, and I called for help, and it was suggested that I read Contagion in the miscellaneous writings. And lo and behold, just after I finished it, the cough has disappeared. This is a marvelous article, and I have, matter of fact, in 2 or 3 future newsletters is going to quote from this article. It is a very powerful message for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Luann, New York.
Luann from New York, go ahead.
Thank you. I am so grateful to my practitioner for the huge lesson I learned recently about allowing negativity to invade my home and steal my oil. About a month ago, I opened my home to a close friend of mine and her daughter so that they could start a new life. It seemed like a right idea at first. but it didn't take long for the harmony in my home to be shaken to the core. Every day was a constant struggle to stay above it all. It even caused me to forget about one of our roundtable discussions and service that followed. I was so deeply disturbed that I could not even think. One night, exhausted from weeks of dealing with constant issues, I was walking down the stairs from my studio and fell off the last step, landing very hard on the floor. At first, I laughed it off, but the pain in my ribs was unbearable, and it was difficult to breathe. I settled myself and began working to destroy any fears that would claim my ribs were broken. I continued on for a couple days and realized this was more than I could handle on my own. I called my practitioner for help. She made it clear to me that I needed to end any personal sense of helping this person and take a stronger stance to clear this negativity from my home. She directed me to the article Place by Mary Baker Eddy. I worked with it for about a week and even gave it to my friend to read, knowing that this truth would elevate her thought and put her on the right path. The next day, she received a text from her new landlord, and a couple days later moved out of my home. After that, my ribs never bothered me again, and I could peacefully breathe. I am so grateful for the wisdom of my practitioner, which helped me to see how easily I am tripped up by a personal sense of kindness to others, without protecting myself with a strong love for God and a clearer understanding of truth. I am learning to take a stronger stance against anything that is unlike God. I'm so grateful to God for this lesson and to Christ Jesus for showing us the way. I am grateful to Mary Baker Eddy for giving us this science, and to my practitioner for this healing and the continuous inspiration to put God first in all that I say and do. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy from New Jersey, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the readings tonight and for the beautiful music. Tonight I wish to express my heartfelt gratitude for the support that I have been receiving from my Plainfield practitioner, whose strong and steadfast and loving support has been helping me to open my thinking and to grow in my understanding of Christian Science and how to correctly apply what I am learning in my daily life. For the strength, the conviction, and the peace that I am gaining through practitioner support, I am so very deeply grateful. I would also like to express my gratitude for the watches done in the Plainfield Church, for being taught not only about the importance of watching, but also how to have a strong and effective watch. Participating in the Unity Watches and watching independently has been life-changing for me and given me a purpose that I had been longing for a long time. Watching has become a very natural and, for me, a very necessary part of my day. I am so very grateful for all that the Plainfield Church so freely and lovingly provides to us, and for this opportunity to share my gratitude and for the opportunity to be with you all this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda from Missouri, go ahead.
Thank you. Last week I gave a testimony about a rapid recovery that I had after I had burned my hand quite badly. And I realized that I neglected to mention two important points that I briefly share tonight because the testimony seems incomplete without giving credit to two specific ideas that came to me very clearly to work with. The first was the story of the three men in the fiery furnace, which is found in the 3rd chapter of Daniel in the Bible. And the second was a testimony that came to me initially from memory that I later went and looked up. And it's a very moving testimony that's found in the 1904 October Christian Science Journal. It's volume 22, page 424. And it's a testimony of a woman who was severely burned and disfigured while helping move a lit gasoline stove. And she was engulfed in flames, but was apparently a student of Christian Science at that time. And she testified that when this happened, even while standing in the flames, she never in her life realized God's presence as she did at that time, and that even while standing in the flames, her thought was undisturbed. She testified that she stood firmly in the truth, declaring that she was under the protection of divine love, and that she did not suffer pain for even a moment because, quote, God's allness was all to me. Material conditions could not overthrow the government of omnipotent love, and I was entirely free from suffering. That's the end of her quote. She goes on to describe her healing and had practitioner support. And again, it was very remarkable and moving and certainly helped me. And I share this because it's a testimony from over 100 years ago that was helpful to me now, along with a Bible story from thousands of years ago that helps me now, because this truth doesn't change, and perhaps this reference may help someone else. And tonight, I would also like to share my gratitude for the practitioners in this church. Early this morning, a problem arose with one of my dear animals, and after working for a while, I felt I needed some help, especially to handle fear. So I reached out to my practitioner, and she was right there to work and support me. And I'm just so very grateful. I think of our practitioners often for the example that we've been given here by our practitioners who are always ready to answer the call and demonstrate such love and gratitude for Mrs. Eddy and for the remarkable gift that she left us all. I thank you, everyone participating in and supporting our service tonight and the music. And Gary, thank you so very much for your reading.
Thank you. Wendy from Georgia, go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you to everyone participating and contributing to this lovely testimonial service. A few months ago, I noticed that someone had taken the silver letter T emblem off of the front grille of my 1998 Toyota Camry. There was an empty black hole where it used to be. Rather than being angry or feeling any sense of loss about it, I instead chose to forgive and love whoever it was that took the emblem off of my car. I then focused my thought on locating a replacement for it. I went online to eBay and found a genuine Toyota replacement emblem for about $30 with shipping, but the thought came to me to wait and not place the order just yet, so I listened. About a week later, I was attending an all-day workshop at a school in a part of Savannah where I rarely ever go. When I left to get some lunch, I drove past a place called Cash and Carry Collier Parts, a junkyard filled with wrecked cars. As I was driving past, the thought came to me to stop in and see if they might have a car like mine that still had the emblem on the front, and I listened again. While I wasn't exactly dressed to be walking around a junkyard with my high heels and my business suit on, I stayed open to the pure thought that I knew was guiding me. I pulled in, parked my car, and went inside. There was a very nice young lady there named Charity who was working behind the counter. I immediately saw her as God's perfect child, and I described to her what I was looking for. She typed it into her computer and handed me a printout of the 4 Toyota Camrys in their lot and the road number where each was located. She told me it would cost me $2 to walk out into the junkyard to try and locate those 4 cars to see if they still had the part that I was looking for. She said there was no guarantee I would find the emblem that I needed, and whether I did or not, it would still cost me $2. I continued to trust in and listen to God to guide me down the correct path, even though it was an experience that took me into very unfamiliar territory. All of a sudden, Charity leaned over and said, "Don't worry about the $2, and you're expected to go out and pull the part yourself, but I'd be happy to take you out there and help you search for it." It was an extremely hot, sunny, and humid day, and even though I was wearing a black suit, I felt very cool and comfortable walking through the junkyard. I asked her where she was from, and she said Nashville, Tennessee, and she had just moved to Savannah to be near her boyfriend, but they'd broken up and she was now trying to get a better job with the Georgia Ports Authority. We walked past lots of wrecked cars and eventually turned down one of the roads and came upon a car that looked just like mine. Even though the car had obviously been in a bad wreck, there on the front grille in perfect condition was the silver Toyota T emblem, looking shiny and new without a single scratch on it. Charity walked over, reached in behind the grille, pinched the clips that were firmly holding it in place, and gently slid the emblem out, being careful not to break the clips, and she handed it to me. I was very happy. It was clearly the embodiment of right action and the result of listening to God for my direction. As we walked back to the building, I repeatedly expressed my gratitude to her for all of her help and kindness. When we got inside, I went up to the register to pay for the emblem and was pleasantly surprised to hear that the total was only $3 instead of $30 that it cost on eBay. I paid the $3 and thanked the cashier and Charity again. When I got out to my car, I went around to the front, placed the emblem into the empty space, and it snapped perfectly into its place. I quietly thanked God again for his guidance and for the beautiful unfoldment of his plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Luba, Ohio.
Luba from Ohio. Go ahead.
Good evening. Last evening, I arrived home, and on the back porch, I arrived home around 8 o'clock in the evening, and on the back porch, the smell of gas was very strong. I became fearful and called my practitioner, who told me to get quiet, and you will know what to do. I discovered that the smell was coming from a machine that was leaking gasoline. I learned that because the back porch was not enclosed, the open air created less of a problem. Later that evening, I was finally able to find something to contain the leak that it did not spread. And I was so grateful to God that he brought this idea on how to do this. And the smell of gas subsided. I went to bed peacefully and was able to find today on how this would be further taken care of. I am so very grateful to God, to my faithful calming practitioner, and Christian Science. I'm so very happy to be here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, California.
Michael from California. Go ahead.
Thank you for the timely readings. Last week I had to, or a few weeks ago, I had to explain to somebody who was become interested in Plainfield, the Independent Christian Science Church, and I had to, at some point, make the distinction clear between what I had experienced in the branch churches and what I was experiencing now. And to have to put that into words, it became very clear to me just how far I've come in learning and demonstrating Christian Science from my previous time in the branch churches and now. And I had to make that clear to the person, not out of any sort of spite or anything negative, but I had to make this person understand what it was that Plainfield offered that is unique. And one of the major benefits is what people have been talking about with being able to handle animal magnetism and knowing what that is and the watches. And it's just been this wonderful training ground that people can apply to their lives. And I also had to think back to, there was, during the time in the branch churches, there was always this uneasiness and this sort of some feeling that something wasn't quite right. And I think that most people in those churches understand what I'm talking about. And I didn't know until I came here, and I realized a lot of that was animal magnetism and world thought affecting the services and the people at those services. And I just am very grateful. I know that I've only scratched the surface in the short time that I've been here in terms of demonstrating Christian Science, but I have constantly been encouraged by one demonstration after another in things that would appear small and insignificant, which they never really are, and other major healings, physical healings, helping my family. And so it just continues, and I'm just grateful for all the blessings and this church and everybody involved in it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Suzanne, Vermont.
Suzanne from Vermont, go ahead.
Good evening. I'd like to express my gratitude for this church and for being able to attend these services from far away. Since finding the Plainfield Church around 2002, my life has undergone quite a wonderful change. The teachings here taught me the importance of obedience, consistency, being active, and sharing Christian Science with others, not keeping it selfishly to myself. What I've learned here helped me to grow a backbone and to learn to keep my focus on God. Although I grew up in science and went through class instruction, I was always a dabbler and never truly made an effort. I even had a years-long habit of snoozing through church services, which I certainly never felt good about. So because of my lack of effort and understanding, my life was like being in a hamster wheel, going round and round, and I spent years wondering why things never seemed to change. I didn't like this lack of direction and lack of progress. I knew that things could be better, that they would be better, for I always knew that Christian Science was the way. As it turned out, God certainly had a perfect plan for me. I found this church searching the internet for answers to my questions on Christian Science, answers that I found, and things started to change. I now have a very meaningful life with the purpose of working for God that no longer bears any resemblance to a hamster wheel. Thanks to all the church activities here that I'm able to participate in, my life is much more interesting and never lacks for adventure. The straight and narrow path that I had always feared would be boring is now the only path I want to be on, and it is not boring in the least, far from it. Thanks be to God, Jesus, our way shower, and Mary Baker Eddy for her discovery, and all the members, workers, teachers, and practitioners here who have worked tirelessly to maintain this independent Christian Science church, which, as a beacon of light, brought me in. This beautiful church has helped me find my way in life, gave meaning to it, has brought me endless blessings, and helped me to want to share with others that Christian Science is truly a wonderful way of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff.
Thank you for the excellent music, readings, and testimonies tonight. I was going to call in sick tonight with a bad back because when I woke up this morning, the pain was so excruciating, I couldn't get out of bed, let alone put my shoes on. As we are trained to do at Plainfield Christian Science Church, I immediately turned to prayer. Dear God, what are you trying to tell me about this long-standing belief in a bad back? I've agreed with this aggressive belief most of my life, and the inevitable result is always more of the same trouble and pain. My wife, who is not a Christian Scientist, called upstairs saying, "Don't try to pray your back away, your bad back away, honey. Take a pain reliever pill. Maybe you shouldn't drive to church tonight." I was feeling pretty useless stuck in bed when we had so many family responsibilities to take care of today. Writhing in pain, I crawled out of bed, ran a hot bath with some Epsom salts, and prayed again. The answer came quickly, that I was going to go to Plainfield Church tonight, no matter what. Calling in sick suddenly seemed like the wrong thing to do. God willing, He would get me to the church on time, and I would have a testimonial to share. I even started singing "Get Me to the Church on Time" from the musical My Fair Lady. Getting out of the bath, I realized I wasn't as afraid as before to move around. The fear was gone. I picked up the back brace for a moment, then threw it on the bed. After denying the error had any power over me, I did 10 affirmations of God's supreme power governing the situation. One of them is a quote from Mary Baker Eddy. I obey God, therefore perfect, always praying and watching, so no discouragement. End quote. Before I knew it, I was dressed and on my way downstairs to take care of the day's business. I am so grateful to Plainfield Church, practitioner help Mary Baker Eddy for giving us this science, and the Bible which helps me to rid myself of erroneous beliefs, which today led to a healing from paralyzing fear and restoration of mobility. Always praying, rejoicing, and giving thanks in all things can be fun, like singing "Get Me to the Church on Time." Thank you.
Thank you. Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the very timely readings, Gary. I want to express my sincere and deep gratitude to God and to Christ Jesus and Mrs. Eddy, who gave us the comforter which Jesus had promised, divine science. It is indeed the pearl of great price, the answer to the mystery of human life, for which I'd always been searching. I found Christian Science as an adult while seeking a better Sunday school for our son. But years went by. I read Science and Health, and years went by. I was even class taught, and I tried 3 different Christian Science churches. But I never got anywhere really until by continuing to search, I found Plainfield Church on the internet, where at last I found the true, correct Christian Science being taught here. And so it reached me, and I began to understand and to learn. I found my church home. And I'm very grateful for the ever-available practitioner, and for all the classes, the roundtables and the Bible studies, and all the support. And thank you very much for this service tonight and for all the testimonies.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a testimony from Florida, one of the people who recently found us. She says this: I am so grateful for Christian Science, my practitioner in this church, Plainfield church workers, and the abundant wealth of information on the website. My life has improved dramatically, and I'm seeing truth demonstrated in many ways. Health, family, and work relations are more harmonious. Plus small daily proofs that God is all around us. All this in just a few weeks' time. God bless you all and everyone. And tonight I'd like to express my gratitude for the timely readings. Gary, thank you so much, because this belief in witchcraft is a worldwide one, and I am certain that it will bless many. I am so grateful to learn through Christian Science that all these beliefs can have no effect on any of us. And Mrs. Eddy explains so clearly in Miscellaneous Writings, page 224, she says that the mental arrow shot from another's bow is practically harmless unless our own thought barbs it. I have learned that the thought that would barb these beliefs is the thought that denies God's supremacy. Today, I'm sure there are many forms of evil thinking, but can they have any effect on any of us as we daily, diligently work to gain the conviction that God is all and that He alone governs us? Thank Mrs. Eddy so much for so much instruction. I find a few in the Blue Book very strengthening. They are on page 83. She says this: there is but one mind to govern man, and there is no evil to interfere with man. No subtlety of evil can blind or paralyze my human capacity to apprehend and love God. I cannot be made to carry out the works of evil, nor be prevented from working in the interest of truth and the cause. Mortal mind cannot outline my experience. And lastly, love cannot be shut out of my life. God, through the Bible and all that He gave Mrs. Eddy, gives all of us something to work with to dismiss the tempter when he comes to our door. I am so grateful tonight for all the testimonies that prove God's supremacy, for the music, again for the readings, and I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Okay, Linda, can you announce the last hymn, please?
Hymn number 396. Ye messengers of Christ, His sovereign voice obey. Arise and follow where He leads, and peace attend your way. Hymn number 396.